to get things started.
Thanks, Mimi, for that introduction and for going through the housekeeping items. And thank you to everyone who filled out the poll. It seems like most folks here have either no experience or are beginners, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So thanks for filling that out so we know. My name is Maddie. I'll be the presenter for today. Today's webinar is a beginner's guide to using Portfolio Manager for benchmarking law compliance. This is the first webinar in our three-part series that touch on the role of EPA's Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool in facilitating successful benchmarking law compliance. As Mimi said, we won't go into the specifics of certain laws, but this is more of an overall kind of viewpoint for you to help you out. So again, today's session is pretty much focused on the basics of benchmarking ordinances reporting process using Portfolio Manager. And then the follow-on sessions will focus on how to review those benchmarking results and how to develop strategies for improving building performance going forward. If you are already familiar with Portfolio Manager, a lot of the content in this presentation could be somewhat familiar for those who answered intermediate or advanced in that introductory poll. So today's session really is geared towards folks with limited or no experience using this tool. We will be having the second part of the series on April 24th and the third part of the series on May 8th. And right afterwards, on the next day, we'll be starting over and running the series again on May 9th. So if you are unable to make it for the full session today and want to come back for another live session, we will be having this exact one again on May 9th, or if you just want a refresher. So today, what we'll be doing is going over these learning objectives. So today, you will learn all of the essential information you need to get up and running with Portfolio Manager, including how to set up your account and how to access and upload energy and water data for your building. And finally, at the end, we'll walk through the two most common data sharing processes that are utilized by jurisdictions to facilitate reporting in the Portfolio Manager tool. So at the onset of this, it is important to note that each jurisdiction does have different requirements for compliance. And that's why today we're not going to be addressing those specific requirements to any one local or state government, but rather we're going to present this general information on how to use Portfolio Manager and how to report that data in the ways that are most commonly required under these laws. So with a little bit of that background in mind, we'll jump into our first learning objective for today, which is understanding the role of EPA's Portfolio Manager tool in benchmarking ordinance compliance. So our map here on the screen, this shows that as of the end of 2023, we had more than 50 state and local governments across the US require commercial building owners to benchmark the energy performance of their buildings. That is likely why we have so many people attending today, including yourself. So this process usually involves obtaining and submitting a year's worth of your energy and sometimes also water data for your building. It really depends on the law. So these jurisdictions often make the results available either publicly or before the sale of a building. And the disclosure and transparency of benchmarking data can take a variety of forms. So we do encourage you to reach out to your local jurisdiction to see if you're interested in learning more about how your building data is going to be disclosed. In addition to these benchmarking ordinances, it is also important to note that many benchmarking and transparency laws do include other requirements besides reporting energy data. This might include mandatory energy audits, retro commissioning requirements, things like that. And those are often based on how the building is performing. And by making energy performance information transparent, the state and local governments help identify areas of need for energy efficiency and then can drive demand for energy efficiency in the marketplace, which then in turn will come back and help you. So across the country, state and local governments have chosen this EPA's Energy Star portfolio manager to help them implement their data disclosure policies and laws. Now, a little bit into the EPA responsibilities versus your jurisdiction's responsibilities. So EPA's Energy Star program is a free and voluntary program that's developed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and it helps any commercial building owner or operator benchmark the energy performance of their building. And that process is facilitated through the Portfolio Manager tool, which is free, secure, and a web-based application. And while it is free and voluntary, a growing number of state and local jurisdictions have decided to require building owners to benchmark and report on their property's energy performance through this Portfolio Manager tool. So if you are required to benchmark your building to comply with one of these laws, the EPA can help you with any of the questions related to the Portfolio Manager tool. That said, any questions about deadlines, what buildings or data must be submitted, fines, extensions, or confirmation on whether your report was received, those questions should all be directed to your jurisdiction. And we do offer several resources to help you get in touch with your local jurisdiction, including a list of benchmarking ordinance contracts. And we will discuss these resources in greater detail at the end of today's presentation. And the slide deck that is sent out after today's webinar will include the links to these resources as well. Now, EPA's Energy Star program and therefore the Portfolio Manager tool have been adapted in partnership with the Natural Resources Canada. And while today's presentation will primarily focus on using Portfolio Manager to comply with US benchmarking ordinances, if you do have any questions about Canadian benchmarking laws, we would encourage you to send them directly to the team at Natural Resources Canada, and they can provide their own resources to you, maybe even including some webinars. So today we will be focusing just on US benchmarking. All right, and then before we jump into the specifics of this Portfolio Manager tool that has been referenced a few times by now, we also wanted to note that a lot of times the easiest way to ensure that you're complying successfully is to work with an energy service company that is highly experienced in Portfolio Manager benchmarking already. So we do have an online list of service providers at the link on the slide. And one of these companies could help you complete the compliance process from start to finish, which includes setting up your accounts and your properties in Portfolio Manager, obtaining your whole building energy or water consumption if that's needed for your building, and then all the way through to submitting the data to your local jurisdiction. So our most active list of service and product providers, which is a screenshot, we have a screenshot of it on the slide here, includes some third-party service providers that you might want to reach out to. I will note that these companies often charge a fee for these services, but we just wanted to call out that this is an option to help you get to compliance. And if you're on the line and you are a service provider who wants to be added to the list, all you need to do is benchmark a property in Portfolio Manager. Okay, so with that background of the EPA and Energy Star in mind, we can now review the steps you can take to ensure successful compliance. So we'll be starting with step 1 here, which is creating a property, including setting up all of the basic information, the property use details, and the consumption data. So if for those on the line who are slightly more experienced, this section of the presentation is going to be a little more basic, but we will jump into the actual data submission process after this part. So I just want to remind folks that this part 1 training is supposed to be a beginner's guide, so we are starting by covering all of the basic information. So we do have the 3 steps here. To create your property in Portfolio Manager, you just need all the items listed under step 1. We will be doing a live demo in a few minutes. So if you want to make sure you have all of this information and then follow along in Portfolio Manager while we do the demo, I would highly encourage doing so. And then you can ask your questions in the chat for our Q&A section. So additionally, if you have an interest in generating our 1 to 100 Energy Star score, you will also want to input those property use details that we see in step 2 on the slide here. And those are considered to be the drivers of energy use in your building. And those use details will change according to the property type that you enter in Portfolio Manager, and it will prompt you through those questions accordingly. And while Portfolio Manager does ask you for this information, your jurisdiction may not require you to actually report on these property use details or even generate an Energy Star score. But we do recommend entering in this information if you have it, as it could be helpful just to provide additional insights into your building's performance. And then this last part, step 3, you'll need consumption data for the resources you're required to track, whether that's just energy or energy and water. And then for the time periods of that consumption data, it does also vary by jurisdiction. So you want to make sure that you're checking with your jurisdiction's policies to determine which data that you need, including which resource type and what time period to cover. All right. So now you know what you need to do in the basics. Let's talk about real quick some options for collecting and getting that consumption information and then putting it into the tool. Because as you can imagine, if you have, let's say, a few meters and you need to input 12 months of information for each of those meters, it could take a while if you're doing it manually. So we do have some alternative options for you. So this first approach is the manual data entry. This usually involves collecting your data directly from your utility bills and then entering in those date ranges and those consumption values that you see on the bill directly into Portfolio Manager. This second way is the spreadsheet upload method. And in that case, you can download and populate an Excel spreadsheet on your end with all of your energy consumption data, and then upload that spreadsheet back into Portfolio Manager, and it automatically updates in your property. Now, this third way is to work with another third-party service provider firm or your utility to have your data sent directly to Portfolio Manager. And that allows you to avoid that manual data entry process. And it is a good option for you to explore before you get into wrangling all of your utility bills. And a lot of utilities are already offering these services for free. So for more details on each of these approaches, we do have a link on the slide that will kind of explain them a little bit more. And I will just also remind folks that a PDF version of this slide deck with all of the live links will be sent out after today's webinar, so you can reference those as well. So today on the live demo, we're going to walk through the manual data entry process in Portfolio Manager. But before we jump into those specifics, we will quickly touch on the utility's role in providing whole building data. So remember, to benchmark in Portfolio Manager, you will need whole building consumption data for the resources that you're required to track, like energy or water. And many utilities aggregate data and can directly provide you with a single meter entry for the entire building for each of the months that you need. And in most locations that have benchmarking ordinances, so for most folks on this call, I would imagine this service is available. And that leads us right into the utility data access map. The link again is on the slide here. This is a great resource to check out before you start entering in your energy data. You can use this map to identify whether your local utility may be able to provide data for benchmarking in Portfolio Manager. So all you need to do is type in your zip code in this green box and press search. And that will give you some more information on the specifics of what your utility has to offer. In some cases, the utility can upload your data directly into Portfolio Manager, and in other cases, they'll send you a spreadsheet that you can use to help upload your data into Portfolio Manager. So highly recommend checking this out before wrangling all of your utility bills together. And now that you have some background on what data is required to get started in Portfolio Manager, finally, we're going to talk about how to enter that data into the tool. So this first step is to create a free Energy Star Portfolio Manager account. And this is where we will start our screen share. And we're just going to confirm with the host that this is actually screen sharing and that it's big enough. I can actually zoom out.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, right there is probably good.
Okay, great. So, and I'm actually going to paste this link in the chat. So if you do want to follow along, you can on your own screen. So the first step is to navigate to that link, or you can also search for Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And on this sidebar here, you can create an account with Portfolio Manager. And it just takes a couple of minutes to create your account and get up and running. I won't be doing that since we already have an account made, but you just press create an account and fill in all of this information and then get started. So let's say you've created your account or have logged back in after many months away. And you are now on the My Portfolio page, which is kind of the home page of Portfolio Manager. This is where your dashboard is with all of the metrics of your properties that are sorted through a number of ways. And the first step to benchmark, once your account is set up, is to set up your property. So to do so, we will click on the Add a Property button on the left side of your screen, circling it here, and we'll just click on that. And that'll bring us to this landing page. It says, set up a property, let's get started. So from here, you're going to want to first select the best property type that explains the building you are wanting to benchmark. There are 85 options in this list. Now, if your property does have multiple uses, the EPA recommends selecting the primary use that represents the largest proportion of the building's gross floor area. So, and we also have here definitions for each of the property types. If you are unsure whether your property meets the definition. For the sake of this demo, we're going to be doing a K-12 school, just for example purposes. And then the next step is to choose how many physical buildings are located on the property. So if you choose none, that means your property is part of a building, so it might be a tenant space, for example. Most folks will be selecting one. My property is a single building. You can also choose more than one if your property includes multiple buildings. We do have campus guidance for those who are wanting to follow the EPA Energy Star guidance on which properties are eligible for campus benchmarking. However, your jurisdiction may have other guidance that you'll want to follow, so it is worth checking what your jurisdiction says about benchmarking campuses. I will be doing this for today. We're just going to say this school has 3 buildings, for example. Now, this last section is to select the construction status of your property. So if you're submitting a property for compliance, you're going to want to keep it as existing. Design is just for commercial new construction projects. I'm going to be doing a test property today because this obviously is not a real property on this demo. But you're also welcome to use this if you want to test features or practice or anything like that. You can use this test property option. But for most of you who are wanting to benchmark, you will press existing. And then once you've filled in all of that information, you'll get started. All right, so on this page, you'll want to enter in general information, including the property address, size, and gross floor area and occupancy percentage. So let's say in school. You'll want to select the country, US for most of us here. Okay, I'm just filling in some stuff here so that it can actually go through for the demo, but you'll obviously fill in the correct address for your property, including the year built and the gross floor area. And we do have some more information on what details to include when you are measuring your gross floor area. It does highlight here to not include parking, and it will be measured from the exterior surfaces of the building. So it might be useful to check on what to include and also to check with your jurisdiction to see if they have other guidance. Now, the occupancy here is the percentage of your property's gross floor area that is occupied and operational. So just as an example, because this can be a little confusing, if you have a 10-story office building that on average has 9 of its 10 floors fully leased and occupied, that occupancy would be 90%. And this occupancy rate is not used to calculate your metrics in Portfolio Manager, but it is required as indicated by this red asterisk. Okay, so if we scroll down, we see a field for standard IDs. And this is a crucial step which is used by most state and local governments with benchmarking laws to help identify buildings that need to report their data. So it's likely that you will need to fill in this field if you're reporting your data for compliance. We do have an FAQ that's linked to help you find your standard ID, but we cannot directly give it to you from here. But if you do have questions, actually, let me just send this in the chat so you guys can get started, because I know this is a big question. So if you do need help finding your standard ID, we have guidance on how to get started with that process here. Just sent that link in the chat. Okay, so you'll enter that in. And then this last step is just to see if any of these apply, and this will be dependent on the property type that you choose. So once you fill in all that information, you will press continue. Next, you'll be asked to provide more details for your primary property type. Now, each property type will have different use details, and as you pass your mouse over each of the use details, the definition will appear and the glossary will open if you actually click on that link. So see, for high school, there's an example. If you are in the middle of benchmarking and entering in your data and you realize that you don't have certain pieces of these information right in front of you, you can always use default or temporary values. However, just to make sure that the accuracy of your metrics remains, you want to remember to update these default values with actual information once you do have it. So we're just doing some examples here. And then you can also, let's see, use this drop-down menu on the page to add another type of use. If you have a multi-use property where that additional use type that you have isn't already included in this primary property type. So a good rule of thumb that we generally recommend is to enter as few property use types as possible. And for the Energy Star program, there are 4 exceptions to this rule. When you should create a separate property use, that's if it can get an Energy Star score, if it accounts for more than 25% of the property's gross floor area, if it's a vacant or unoccupied office, and if the hours of operation differ by more than 10 hours from the main property use. So if you do need to add another type of use, then you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you will just finish filling in all of the property use details. And I will just note that if you are interested in the future of applying for Energy Star certification, we aren't going into certification today, but I'll just note that you'll want to make sure all of the use details that have that star next to it are filled in without default values. All right, so once you're done entering in those use details, you can click Add Property. And bingo, now the property is created. This is the Property Summary tab. And from here, you can view the property's details. You can enter in details. You can enter in data for your energy, water, and waste. And you can also set goals. So there are no summary metrics displayed in the box here, and that's because there's no meter and consumption data yet entered for this property. And that's what we'll go over next. So if you recall from a few minutes ago, we did cover your options to obtain your energy and water data through your utility or a third-party service provider. But now we're going to go over the process of entering your data manually in Portfolio Manager if you are going that route instead. So to get started with manual data upload, you'll first need to create meters for all of the energy sources at your building. So to do so, you'll navigate over to the Energy tab, and then you'll simply click Add a Meter. And I'll just go over that again because there are two places that you can add your meter from. Either the meter summary box in the left-hand side, there's Add a Meter, or you can also do it from up here. They both bring you to the same place. And this is where you'll be prompted to identify all of the sources of energy that are consumed at your property, as well as the number of meters for each fuel source. So you'll want to make sure every fuel source is represented here. So for this demo, we're just going to say that there was an electric meter purchased from the grid and a natural gas meter as well. You'll also, under the electric checkbox, will be prompted to see whether or not it was generated from either on-site solar panels or on-site wind turbines. If you click one of those, you will be prompted for more information later on as well. So if we know that we've selected all of the sources of the property's energy, we can scroll down and click Get Started. All right. Now on this About Your Meters page, you can click anywhere in the table to add data about your meters. So for example, this units, if we want to add the units, we'll just click in and we're prompted to add what unit we want to use there. And then we'll also want to enter in the date that the meter became active. Now, again, you'll want to be checking what time frame your jurisdiction wants data represented for. But for this one, again, there's a definition here, but it's the first date of the very first bill for this meter. It might not necessarily be that date that the jurisdiction wants your energy data for. So if you do have a fuel, if your fuel is delivered in bulk, like you have a fuel oil or propane type, then you'll want to check Enter as Delivery. Otherwise, you'll just fill in all the other information as well for all of your meters. And then you'll click Create Meters. There we go. And I'll just point out this green box here. As you go through in Portfolio Manager and enter things in and do things, it will have this green banner that kind of confirms that what you did was successfully done. So for this one, it says your meters have been created. And it also links to other resources as well. So it is useful to always just check this green box as it appears up top and see if you can use any of the resources it provides as well. All right, so this next step is where you see that all of the meters that you've established are located. the next step is to actually enter in your data. So you can expand each meter record by clicking on this arrow to the left of the meter that you'd like to edit. And all of your meters will be presented here. And that allows you to add data to multiple meters at the same time so that you don't have to click through multiple meter entry pages. And to add an entry, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you'll just click to add an entry. And you can enter in exactly what you have on the bill that was probably sitting next to you on your desk. So if the start date is, the first, oh boy, the first of the month, it auto-populates to the next month, and then you'll enter in that usage. To add another entry, you will click this button below the table, add another entry, and it'll auto-populate to fill in so there's no gaps in your data. You can just do a bunch of those and then enter in your usage for each of those months, like so. Now, let's go down to the electric. I will also want to mention that your start date does not have to be the first of the month. If your bill, for example, starts on the 6th of the month and runs to the 6th of the month, then you can do that. You can enter it in directly and then type in your usage exactly as you have it on the utility bill. And same thing, to add another entry, we just use this button at the bottom and it auto-populates so that there's no gaps, and then you can just fill in the usage. Okay, and for the sake of time, I will not be entering in 12 months of data for these 2 meters. Don't you worry. We're just going to do a few. There we go. But let's say that you've entered in all of the data for the correct time frame that your jurisdiction requires for all of the meters at your property. Then you'll press continue. All right, and this step is to select the meters that you want to include in your metrics. So it's really important here for Portfolio Manager to understand which meters should be applied to the total property energy consumption and should therefore be used for your calculations. So you'll indicate that the meters do account for total energy consumption or that they do not account for total energy consumption. And if you do select that one, then you'll select what they account for. I'll just be doing the first one for today. And then when you are done, you will apply selections. So now your meters are all set up and you will see a note of congratulations back on the Energy tab. You see here that green banner again. So here you can review a summary of and access the energy meters that are set up for the building down here. And if you ever want to add new entries or edit past entries, then you can select this blue button under the meter summary, enter your bills, or you could go through by selecting the relevant meter. And again, so like if you realize that there was a typo and wanted to correct a meter entry, then you would click enter your bills here, or click on that meter type and edit it there. All right. Just as an example. So that brings us, that concludes our second objective, which was getting started using Portfolio Manager. I would say we've thoroughly gotten started using Portfolio Manager. Our next step and the last learning objective for today is submitting your data for compliance. Now I am going to go back to the slides really quick because I want to emphasize a point here. Let's skip ahead. Great. So each city and state does have its own customized step-by-step process for compliance and reporting. So we do recommend reviewing your jurisdiction's guidelines before you even begin your submission process. This is because there are two ways, two options to submit your data. The first is a property share. So if your jurisdiction is using the property record sharing option, then you will have to submit a connection request to your jurisdiction's portfolio manager account, similar to making a friend request on Facebook, for example, and then you will share all of your property data with them. And doing this allows you to provide your jurisdiction with access to your property record in Portfolio Manager, and you can allow that recipient to view and report on your property data and specify what information they can see. The second option is a data request. So if your local jurisdiction is using this option, then they will provide a link for you to access and to respond to their request. That link is usually provided through an email, a guidance document, or on their website. And with that data request, you are providing your jurisdiction with limited data points that are specified in that request, rather than sharing the property record. So we're going to be going over both of these options today. We'll start with a property share and then move on to the data request. But I do recommend, checking out which method your jurisdiction is using, so you can adequately prepare. All right, so before we, actually, we'll go back to the screen share once more. Back to Portfolio Manager. Mimi, can you see this?
Yeah, you're good.
Make sure. Okay, great.
Maybe actually zoom in a little.
Yeah, okay.
Just
How's that?
one. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
So sorry, folks, if it was a little small beforehand, but hopefully it's good now. So yeah, so before we go over the property share method, which is the one we'll start with, I do want to just mention one feature that is intended to help you identify erroneous or anomalous data, and that is the data quality checker. And you'll want to make sure you do this before you go through the submission process. So this tool reviews all of your entries for an individual property for a given 12-month period to identify problems with meter data, property use details, and general property information. So to access this tool, you'll start in the Summary tab of your property record, scroll down, and here we go. It's that third box down, and you can click under the Data Quality Checker, check for possible errors. Now, this data quality checker checks a metric year, which you define as a 12-month time period. And all of the metrics in Portfolio Manager are based on 12 months of data. Oh boy. Okay, so you'll select the year ending date using that drop-down option and click Run Checker. And it will basically scan all of your property and immediately return these results, which we just saw. And you can expand your alerts by using the carets on the left-hand side. So a few things. First, if you have no issues with your property and you're good to go to submit, you will have a green thumbs up. That means there are no issues. However, we don't see that here. If you have a yellow yield sign and an exclamation point inside of it, that indicates atypical data. So unusually high or low values, or no water meters, for example. So if you receive an alert like this, but you know that the information is correct, then you can ignore that. But it is a good idea to just double check that information anyways. On the flip side, if you have a red stop sign with an exclamation point inside of it, that means that data is incomplete or completely missing. So that will prevent metrics from calculating, and you should address that issue as soon as you can. So this one says there's not 12 full months of meter data, and that is because if you recall from a few moments ago, we only entered in 4 months of data. So that is what you see here. If you do end up having this alert, Portfolio Manager does give some brief guidance on how to resolve it, what to do here. And for the meter data example, you'll just click links above and go through your meter entries and actually enter in the rest of the data. So this is the data quality checker. We do recommend using it before you submit for compliance to make sure that your property is good to go. All right. So with that, we'll get into our first data collection method, which is the property share method. We'll start by making the connection with your state energy office. And to do so, you will go up to the top right-hand corner. We haven't been up here at all today. And you'll click on the contacts button. And this will bring you to a list of contacts and organizations, kind of like an address book. And to add a new contact, you'll click this blue button at the top of the table, add new contacts/connections. Now, if your jurisdiction has chosen this option, then they will provide you with a username to search for their portfolio manager account so that you can make the connection. I will be searching for my colleague today, just for demonstration purposes. So once you search the username and click search, a list of results will populate on this right-hand side. And once you confirm that the name and username of that portfolio manager account matches what your jurisdiction has provided, then you will press the blue button, connect. And it confirms with a little pop-up, a connection request has been sent. Great. So once that connection request is accepted on their end, you can see that they've done so through the notifications button, which is also located on the, it's loading, also located on the top right-hand corner. And they will also, once they accept the request, be listed in your contacts book. Oh boy. One second, folks. Portfolio manager is a little slow right now. There we go. Okay, so here's all of your notifications. We see that the outgoing requests, the one I just sent to my colleague Neha, will be there. Oh boy. Okay. Wonder if this is on my end or with portfolio manager. Sorry, folks. Let's see. All right, I think it was just with that notifications tab, but we'll move on. So if you do want to confirm whether or not you're connected with your energy office once you send that request, you can check either via the notifications tab or the contacts tab to do so. So once you have confirmed that you're connected with that account, the next step is going to be sharing your property data with that account. So this does not mean that you are, and connecting with that account doesn't mean you're finished reporting your benchmarking data. You do have to do this second step, which is actually sharing your property. So to do so, you'll click on the Sharing tab in Portfolio Manager. It's the second tab over. And from this page, you'll either select Share or Edit Access to a Property, or Share with your utility or service provider for exchanging data. We'll be demonstrating this second option today, though you will want to check with your jurisdiction to see which option they are using. So next you will choose the provider that you want to share with. That will likely be the account that you just connected with. So that same contact, for example. I'm also connecting or sharing with my colleague once again. Now this second step is to choose the properties that you would like to share. So let's go into this. You can choose one property, for example, or multiple properties. Or if you'd like to select all of your properties, you can click on the the checkbox in the blue up top. Another option, if you have a longer list of properties and you only want to choose your K-12 or your bank branches, for example, then you can filter by property type. You can also filter by construction status to make sure you're only selecting your existing buildings if you have any tests. And you can also filter by state if you have buildings in multiple states and you're just submitting for New York, for example. Now, if you have various properties selected and you have a long list and you want to make sure you're capturing everything, you can always view your selection by clicking this button up top and it'll preview which properties that you've selected. We're going to do the one that we've been using today. And then once you've made sure that you've selected all your properties, you'll click Apply Selection. All right, so this third step is where you are going to choose your sharing permissions. So you'll want to, in this example, select the bulk sharing, the simple option, and then you'll select Exchange Data Custom Access, where you will be directed to specify the access levels of each component of your property information. So your jurisdiction should again provide more guidance as to which exact selections you're choosing here. But for example, a common one is giving read-only access for your property information and your meter information. And then no access for your goals and no access for your recognition tab. So that's just what we're doing for this example. And the selections that you choose here will apply to all of the buildings that you selected in step 2. So all of the buildings that you are sharing with them, they will get read-only access to property information and their meter information. All right. And then you will select yes for share forward. So that way in the future, they'll be able to see this information as well in future years. So once you have filled all that in, you'll click Apply Selection. And then you'll want to just double check that it's the correct account, the correct properties, and the correct permissions selected. And then you'll click Authorize Exchange. Now, once you do this, you'll receive a confirmation email. And if you don't receive an email, you'll just want to check your spam or junk folder. But we'll also get this green congratulations box that the share went through. It says a total of 1 share requests were sent. And if you shared properties, you will receive a notification when, again, the contact has accepted the share. So if you also, another way to check to make sure you have successfully shared the property with your state energy office is by going to the sharing tab. And in this table down here, we see the overview of shared properties. So you can sort by contact or by property. And there are 2 other ways to check that the share was successful. So first, if you click on the properties we shared, this little number, you can see a list of all the properties that you and the state share. So you can see all the properties that you've shared with them. And then second, you'll go up to the notifications window to check the status of your share so that you'll know when the share has been accepted. I don't know why, but this notifications icon is being a little slow today, so yeah, it might not go through, but that's another way to check to see that your share went through as well. So yeah, if you end up doing it this way, this will just be a one-time process because once you make that connection with your state, you won't be needing to do that again in the future. And yeah, so that's method 1, which is the sharing method. All right. Next, we'll go over method 2, which is the data request method. And this is where your jurisdiction may have provided a link for you to follow and submit your data through. So again, this data request link usually is provided through an email or on their website. But after you click on that data request link, you'll be taken to Portfolio Manager, where you can log in with your username and password. And from there, you'll be taken to a set of specific instructions from the requester. And you'll want to make sure that you read your jurisdiction's instructions carefully before you move forward with responding to the request. So we are going to be using an example today that we created. So once you click on the link, you'll be prompted here to respond to the data request. So on this page, you'll want to select if you're submitting the request on behalf of yourself or someone else. And if you're a service provider or another building owner representative, Mimi, I think you're, okay, sorry folks. If you're a service provider, you'll want to make sure to choose someone else so that they can actually get credit for submitting their response. So after you've completed each section of this page, we also want to select the properties and apply your selection. Again, it's the same method. You can filter your properties, you can view your selection up here. And if you want to select all of your properties, you can click on this box. So yes, once you've selected that, then you will click Generate Response Preview. And you'll be able to preview your response. And look at that, we got that green box again. So once you click that response preview, it will send you back to the reporting tab, which I think we haven't touched on today. But once you fill in that information, you'll be directed to this reporting tab. And you'll scroll down. And in this table at the bottom of the page, it will show all of your data requests from others and the status of those requests. So like we just mentioned, now the status of this one is generating response preview. Shouldn't take too long, so if you just refresh, it should populate. There we go, response preview generated, and it didn't find any errors. If you want to view your response preview, you can click on the action drop-down menu and preview response. Okay, so we only have one property here, but if your jurisdiction is requiring a lot of fields or you have a lot of properties to display, you might have trouble viewing them in your browser. So you can also select Download Preview in Excel from that drop-down menu as well. And then from this page, Portfolio Manager helps to identify any errors or any missing data in your submission, similar to how the data quality checker worked before, and it will provide guidance on how to correct them before you submit your request. So if you need to make any changes, you can edit your property just by clicking into it, and then you can generate an updated response to update your submission. So once you've entered in and reviewed your data, then you're ready to click Send Response. So to actually send the response, we'll go back to the Reporting tab, and we'll use that same drop-down menu in this lower table under the Action column, and we will select Send Response. Okay. So on this page, you'll want to choose your Portfolio Manager contacts that you want to receive a confirmation email, as well as the format that you want to receive your receipt in. So I'll just select, you'll likely just want to select the account that belongs to you. And you can also add additional email addresses if they aren't in Portfolio Manager. And then you can choose the format to have your receipt. Step 3 is to certify your release and e-sign your response. You're going to be using for this your Portfolio Manager username and password, and you'll want to make sure you click e-sign response. It also, just as a little confirmation, says that it's been signed. And before you do this, you want to keep in mind that you cannot edit your response after it has been sent. However, you could submit multiple responses to the same request, though that's not recommended. So it is a good idea just to double check everything before you click the Send Data button. If you do attempt to click Send Data and you are still having issues with your data, Portfolio Manager has 3 options for you to proceed. The first is to review or edit the properties. The second is to generate an updated response. And the third is to submit anyways. And so you'll just choose one of those options to complete the process if there are issues with your data. But if there's no issues with your data, then it will successfully go through. Again, we get that green banner saying that it has been successfully sent. A common error that users usually run into is that the report is generated, but it's never actually submitted. So you want to make sure if you are using this data request link that you actually press that send data button. And you always want to check that you received a response receipt via email, which will include a copy of the data that you submitted to the account. All right. So hopefully that was helpful for folks. I think that's the end of our live demo. So we'll go back into the slides to touch on a few resources for you all to look at. I will just emphasize again, we're sending a recording and the slides after today's webinar. So you can always go back to review the demo that we did today, and you'll have the live links to all of these resources. We want to just emphasize one more time that if you have any questions about deadlines, what buildings should be submitted, any fines, extensions, or confirmations on whether your report was submitted, those questions should be directed to your state or local jurisdiction. And I will just also point out this first resource that we have on the slide here has a list of contacts and links to help you contact your local jurisdiction if you have any questions about the topics that we covered during today's session. We also wanted to mention that EPA's Energy Star program has published a series of 25 frequently asked questions that are specific to complying with state and local benchmarking requirements. So if you have any questions related to Portfolio Manager and submitting your data, this is a really great place to start. Again, we can help you with anything related to how to use Portfolio Manager, the metrics that are generated in Portfolio Manager, like the Energy Star score, for example, alerts and data quality checks that you might encounter as you're setting up your property and benchmarking, as well as connecting with other Portfolio Manager users like utilities and third-party service providers. So we do hope that today was helpful and that you enjoyed today's webinar, and that we hope that you join for the next training session, which is using benchmarking results to understand your building performance on March 28th. And then we also want you to be aware of these additional resources, which will help you as you get started in Portfolio Manager. Okay, and that brings us to our Q&A session right at 3 o'clock. So We will now enter our Q&A session of today's webinar. So that's it from the presentation side of things. We can end the recording and then we'll move into our Q&A.